As a professional dog trainer, I can't even tell you how many dogs I have worked with that took treats so roughly that I almost hesitated to even give one.
Sit. Yes.
I can honestly say I've had a few clients where I was grateful when winter came so that I could put gloves on and have a little bit of padding on my fingers. And based on my comments section, I am not alone with this problem. I want to apologize if I sound a bit sick. I am just getting over a really bad cold and probably shouldn't be filming this video at all. But this morning I was making a few of the slides that you're going to see later in this video, and they made me laugh, and it just really made me want to film. So here we are. I'm going to try my best and we'll see how it goes. So in this video, I want to share 3 solutions that I use all of the time with dogs that take treats too roughly. 2 of them are immediate solutions that require no training, while the third is a longer-term training solution that actually starts to solve the issue and teaches your dog to take treats more kindly. So before we get into what works, I first want to warn against a common piece of advice that I frequently see given online for this and share my experience with it. And that is feed them like a horse, which means use a flat palm. I actually was really excited about this advice when I first read it. I have fed many horses throughout my life and I have never been bit, so I thought this might be the perfect solution. And honestly, it might work okay if you're doing an indoor skill where you can extend your arm out and give your dog a treat in front of you. However, if you try to use it during leash training, it doesn't go well, or it didn't go well for me. So it's really difficult to keep your hand completely flat when you are walking alongside your dog without the treat falling out, first of all, and to then have the flexibility to position your perfectly flat hand in front of your dog's nose to give them that treat. And if you don't do it perfectly and your hand's a little bit cupped, it gives your dog the opportunity to chomp that really sensitive skin in the middle of your palm. And as somebody who has experienced this more than once, if I'm being honest, I personally would now sacrifice all of my fingers when I give treats than ever feel that again. So I wanted to mention it in this video just because if you do research on this topic, it's probably something that you're going to see. And you might be like me, where you're like, that's great, that's what I'm going to do. And just, yeah, slight warning that it didn't work out well for me. So I personally would suggest avoiding it. So what do I suggest doing instead? First, I want to give you 2 alternatives to handing treats directly out of your hand. These are immediate fixes and they will solve your finger pain completely. So the first thing that I suggest, and what I personally use all of the time, is a silicone squeeze tube. So instead of giving your dog a dry treat, you're going to instead just give them a quick lick out of this container. I personally love these for a few reasons. The first is that using a squeeze tube often ends up being a lot cheaper than using traditional dog treats. So normally if I'm using these, I will use canned dog food, but you have to add a lot of water to it to really thin it out so that it comes out of the tube easily. This means that 1 can goes a long way and ends up being a lot cheaper than a bag of traditional dog treats. The second reason that I love using them is that I live in a Canadian city with pretty harsh winters, and these squeeze tubes still work great out on winter walks without taking off your gloves. I have terrible circulation, so anything that allows my hands to stay warm is a win. The third reason that I love them is that most canned dog food is actually quite balanced, therefore you can count it toward your dog's overall meals for the day. That means that you can reward your dog during training without overfeeding them. This is particularly helpful if you have a really chonky dog and you want to train them without overfeeding, or if you just need to manage your dog's weight. And then the fourth reason that I love it is that you can actually choose what goes into these tubes as a way to optimize your dog's nutrition. So this is something that I talked about in my last email newsletter, is this book. I'm not sponsored at all. I don't know these authors personally, but my own dog is 12 now, and I'll admit that number is kind of scaring me, and the title of this book, The Forever Dog Life, really appealed to me because I secretly would love my dog to live forever. And this book talks about how to use nutrition to really give your dog the best quality of life and length of life. And in it, there's a bunch of recipes that you can make homemade dog food that's really balanced with great ingredients. And then you can just puree it and use it in the squeeze tubes. So if you really, have the time and the drive to do so, you can actually make incredibly healthy training treats if you're using these. And on that note, I do encourage you to sign up for my email list. I would say about once a month or so, I send out a completely free newsletter. It includes a lot of dog training tips. It talks about things that I might have found or loved that month personally. So, like I said, this book was in my last one. And then my favorite section of it, and what I think is probably the most helpful, is the Q&A section. So every month I take 1 or 2 questions from the community and I answer them in depth about how I would suggest handling that situation. If I can, or if I have any past video tutorials that might be helpful, I'll link those in there as well. But it just really gives me a time to really write out my recommendations for stuff that you guys, the viewers, are struggling with. As much as I would love to get back to every YouTube comment that I get, and I truly would love to be able to do that, it's just not feasible with how many questions I get. So those newsletters give me an opportunity to really take the time to try to provide the most helpful answer and resource that I can for things that you're truly struggling with. So if you want to sign up for that, I will put a link down in the caption, or if you comment newsletter, I will send you the link directly. The second option that I suggest, if you really want to keep your hands away from your dog's mouth, I'm just reaching over off of the side of the camera here where hopefully you can't see my pile of things, but is this. So to be honest, this is really only something that I typically use with quite short dogs. It's a great option if you have mobility issues too, because it allows you to reward without having to bend over really far. But same thing, I will fill a silicone pouch with usually canned or wet dog food, and then dip the spoon into it and give a lick out of that instead. The length of it just makes it really helpful if you're working with a very short dog. So honestly, either of those solutions, if they work for you, you can use them long term. There's no reason that you have to do anything else. But I do typically prefer to also start working on the behavior and trying to teach the dog to actually take treats from the hand more gently. And here's how. In my Leave It training tutorial, which I'll link at the end of this video, you'll see that step 1 is uncued impulse control. This means that I want the dog to learn without any cueing from me that pausing and waiting, rather than trying to steal the treat, is actually what makes the reward happen.
Yes.
After working with a lot of clients' dogs, I've also found that the dogs that learn impulse control in this way end up taking treats a lot more nicely. Why? Instead of going from 0 to 100 when they see the treat, the dog instead takes it more slowly, which usually also means more gently. I've noticed a massive difference in the clients that I've worked with and the ones that have done this training and the ones that haven't, and how nicely they take treats. But as you can imagine, this training could be a little bit painful if you do have a dog that's pretty chompy, so I have 2 tips to help out. The first is don't be a hero. Seriously, wear gloves during this if you need to. And second, I strongly encourage you to start with something that's very low value to your dog. My go-to item is usually spinach or lettuce. Since your dog won't care as much about that item, they'll stop mouthing your hand more quickly, which you can then reward. This gives you a behavior to build upon without wrecking your hands, and then slowly work your way up to higher and higher value foods.
Yes.
And one last really important thing that I need to mention is that if you're finding particularly that your dog is really rough at taking treats when they're out on walks, I would be considering their stimulation levels. Quite commonly, rough treat taking is more of a threshold issue rather than a manners issue. If you watch my threshold video, which I strongly encourage because I personally think that understanding your dog's thresholds is going to be the thing that transforms your training more than anything else, you'll learn that often dogs that are over threshold actually lose their interest in food. If somebody mentions that their dog is completely unmotivated by food out on walks, threshold is the first thing I think of. However, it's also quite common that when a dog is close to their threshold line, that they tend to get snappier and snappier with how they take treats. If you think that it might be your dog's stimulation levels that are making them take treats roughly, then I suggest trying to help them calm down on walks, and I'll share 2 of my favorite ways to do that. The first is using a simple treat scatter to encourage sniffing. All you have to do is take a small handful of treats and toss them onto the grass for your dog to sniff and find. There have been some studies that have shown positive effects in a dog's heart rate and their stress levels when they sniff, and anecdotally, I can definitely say that I've noticed a huge difference with my clients. The second option that I use frequently is the up and down pattern game from Leslie McDevitt. In my last video on making leash training work in the real world, I mentioned that I often modify this game by giving the dog a treat from my hand when they look back up at me to encourage engagement. However, if you have a really chompy dog, then ignore that advice and just play the game the normal way. You're just going to drop a treat on the ground, wait for your dog to look back up at you, and then repeat. This simple pattern of predictable reinforcement can help reset overstimulation. Let me know in the comments if you find that your dog takes treats less roughly after trying these. If you found this video helpful, then I would really appreciate if you hit like and left a comment to let me know. Your feedback really encourages me to make more videos for you, and in ways that I'll never understand, it also apparently helps the algorithm show it to more people that might benefit from it. Let's collectively make it so that we can all reward our dogs without fear.
They're like sharks.
Happy training. I'll see you in the next video.